Hello, friends. Good morning or good evening or whatever part of the world you are. I'm assuming most of us are in the morning, so good morning to you all. Welcome back. And yeah, before you start wondering, rest assured, because you're probably looking at the left side of your screen, you can see the image of Christopher. But rest assured, Miles is a very good practitioner, but not so much so that he may transform himself into Christopher Titmuss. Now, it's really Christopher, and nothing like a good surprise to start the day, huh? So just I hope you can hear me well. I'm assuming you are. Just to let you know, Miles presents his apologies, but he had his two daughters' graduation today, and the graduation ceremony was anticipated to this same time. Israel is 2 hours ahead of us in UK time, so he couldn't. It was a hard choice to make, and I can understand that. So he had to be with his daughters, and I think we can all resonate with that. So I've asked Christopher if he could gently sneak in and end up the week, and he gently and very warmly accepted. So here we are. Here he is. He will be in his own particular way and style and wisdom end up the week of the Four Noble Truths, and subjected to the theme of letting go, which was this month's theme. So glad you're all here. Thanks for being here. Christopher is beyond the need of any presentation. He's the senior most Dharma teacher of the West. He is very well known. He's been teaching for over 50 years. So we're in very good hands and very good company. Just remind you that we'll be here for roughly an hour. Christopher will lead us through a Dharma talk, and then guided practice, and hopefully sometime at the end to just hear your comments or your questions, whatever is the case for you. So I see Jane has raised their hand. Probably I assume that it's just a test, but all for the good, because just to let you know also that you can raise your digital hand on the bottom of the screen by the end of the session if you want to come on live on the screen, and I'll bring you on. Or you can use the chat to ask your questions. If you do that, please type question in capital letters so that Christopher knows that it's a question instead of a comment or anything that you feel like saying. Last but not least, just a little reminder about Dana, the wheel of gratitude, the will of generosity. I'm not taking long with this. It's Lizzie will probably remind you by the end of the session that it's Dana Drum Day, just saying, like Martin says on Fridays. So Dana is the Buddhist practice of generosity, and in this particular case, we remind it every day because that's what keeps us moving. That's what keeps this Dharma wheel, in our case, in the case of this Sangha. Well, actually, it is like Daigan Gaither, the teacher from last Sunday, so wonderfully reminded. Dharma is, by its essence, something that has not been acquired. It's not been invented. It's been discovered by the Buddha, and the the, the essence of all these teachings is that they have to be transmitted and freely offered. Um, so, unfortunately, or just because that's the way the world spins from some time now, um, it's not free of charge. We are in a capitalistic kind of setting. So to do anything, we need money, we need means, we need just to support this platform. And as this is the philosophy of this Sangha, of this platform, of Martin's will for keeping on the Sangha alive, not to have sponsors or any kind of practical ways of having sustainability besides the donations, the Sangha's generosity. So if you feel drawn to it and if you can do that, please donate whatever works for you. It doesn't really matter if it's a large amount or a small amount. What matters is that it's generously offered. And I'll give you the link for that in a moment. And also be very conscious that if you can't donate anything, materially speaking, the fact that you're here, that you practice, that you're with us, that you're part of this Sangha is already in itself a huge generosity. So, just a last thing. We know that Miles was here all the week, so Dana will be shared with him, but we'll make sure that Christopher's generosity being here today will be also part of the Dana for today. So, thank you all, friends. Thanks for being here all the week. Thanks for your practice. Hope you have a very lovely weekend and especially a very nice session today. And I'll hand it over to Christopher. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, George. Very good morning to each and every one of you. If the choice came between attending a rather important day for one's children and being online for a Zoom, I, as a father, would certainly make sure that the children came first. I think it's a real priority. And next month, I go to my grandson's graduation in economics as well. But also, just to quickly add that I left school at the age of 15 and somewhat inspired by the great literary artist George Bernard Shaw of Ireland, when he said, the only time I stopped learning was when I went to school. Not absolutely true, but I get the point. And my university were the years in the monastery. So we have a theme, and the theme is of the Four Noble Truths. What I would like to touch upon with you in this for 20 minutes essentially on the two last truths, and then from there, a guided meditation for around 25 minutes or so, and then following on from that, any responses either in the chat or in the spoken. But first, let's just have a quiet minute together. Let the whole being just settle down. All right. We might say that the hub of the Buddha's teachings are the Four Noble Truths. In fact, it isn't Four Noble Truths. Nothing noble about suffering, the first truth. The actual Pali is the Four Truths of the Noble Ones. That means those who live a noble way of life are concerned with suffering, the first truth of life. Secondly, the causes and conditions, the second truth of life. Third, there is liberation from suffering, the third noble truth. And fourth, there is a way pointing and directing specifically to liberation. These are four truths. The language of truth is important in that it's not a view, it's not an opinion, it's not an ideology, whatever. It's a truth, meaning it's a fact. When it comes to speaking, as this person is speaking, the Buddha was once asked, how do we protect truth when speaking? An important question. And the response that the Buddha gave, and a wise response, I have to say, was when we speak, to recognize and acknowledge this is a view of. This speaker is speaking to you this morning, deeply interested to support truth, and what is being expressed is a view of. With the first noble truth, the Buddha has never said, it doesn't appear in 10,000 discourses, and I'm going to quote the Buddha time to time in this short period with you, life is suffering. He has pointed out to all the factors which make it unsatisfactory. And when defining suffering, he says, it's not getting what I want. It's being dependent on what I cling to. It's being separated from what I hold on to. It's holding on to, being identified with, caught up in body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, consciousness, mindfulness, awareness, meditation. So where a human being is caught up in suffering, then it will show itself in those areas, etc. And that's a widespread factor in all mental, emotional, conceptual suffering. The second is it doesn't arise out of the blue. It doesn't come from an all-powerful God. It's not fate. It's not destiny. It's not evolution. It's not chance. It's not an accident. These are all ways that we use to try to explain suffering. It arises, and it's important it arises because the causes and conditions are there for it to arise. And that still takes into account physical changes, biological changes. The Buddha complained in his old age of chronic back pain, etc. And that, of course, can have hereditary genetic factors and so forth. So when we're talking of suffering, we're actually talking of psychological, emotional, mental, spiritual, and secular, shall we call it, worldly suffering there. Then comes the third noble truth, that we can see the end of it. We do not have to live in a state of the irregular arising of suffering. And fourth, there is the way. Just a point. Hope I'm not speaking too quickly for you. Kind of hurry to squeeze things in. Just a small point. During my years as a Buddhist monk, when I had nothing whatsoever to do all day but meditate and reflect, all my usual day-to-day life things were taken care of: food, shelter, clothing, etc. So the whole attention, it was a blessing, could be given to these explorations. And an insight once occurred to me quite strongly. If the Buddha had said there is suffering, yes, there are the causes and conditions, yes, there is the way to, as the third truth, and the fourth truth is liberation, the completion of the path there, I would have had a doubt in the teaching. That would be the logical order. But realizations are not in the logical order. So the emphasis was given, it's been given with you this morning, that the priority is immediate realization. And what that means is many ways that can arise, and the most common way is in the act of the listening, in which there is a quality of receptivity of the listener, and there is a clear pointing to from the speaker. And what that means is, in the relationship of the speaker to the listener, there can be sudden, precious realizations which are genuinely transformative, and the transformative realization has as its confirmation a deep, lasting sense of freedom. When the listener doesn't, that realization, that insight, that liberating understanding doesn't emerge, and then at that point, one says, why? Why aren't the realizations coming in the process of the listening or the reading? And at that point, one says there must be obstructions in the being, whatever related of past and present, in the being, which is reducing the receptivity. And therefore, the path gets underway. So there is suffering, there are causes, there is the resolution, and there is the way. So the way is when there isn't the immediate realization. That's why you have these four order. Secondly, thirdly, fourthly, whatever, in the looking at the language that the Buddha has used of the third truth, I checked out and listed, I think I put it in one of my books, but you can email me if you want to see the full list. The number of concepts that the Buddha used in order to of the third truth, in order to communicate this. So instead of being tied to a single concept, Perhaps in religions it might be the core concept is God. The Buddha, in his wisdom, gave a variety of concepts. I went through the text. I have to say, it took some days, this. I went through the text and I found a total of 108 concepts for liberation. Nirvana, truth, reality, the unborn, the unmade, the unconditioned, deathless, birthless, the immense, and so on and so on. And what occurred from my experience, seeing and knowing there, was as I went through the concepts, some of them sparked a certain kind of feeling response. I connected well, certainly with the word liberation would be one, nirvana would be another, unconditioned would be another, and some of the concepts didn't touch me. Just on one occasion, the Buddha used the word God, very rarely, but just on one occasion, Brahman, not Brahman, not Brahmin, not a Brahmin, Brahman. And the root of Brahman is the immeasurable. So the Buddha has used the word God once, immeasurable, the infinite, etc. Then we might think, my goodness me, I feel so far away from nirvana. I feel so far away from liberation, from this freedom that is spoken of in the teachings. Frankly, don't buy this mindset. Don't buy it. Don't swallow and identify with this thought. It's problematic. The very thought, I feel so far away, the mind has already, not the mind, the ego, it's an ego. The ego has entered into the consciousness, the self, the I, the my. It has formed a view. There is an investment in the view. The view is identified with. When we identify with the view, hold tightly to it. We believe in the view. We have placed reality, we have placed truth in the view. I feel so far from liberation, from nirvana, from whatever. And that view sustains the gap. The Buddha referred to this as Mara, the contraction, the temptation, the holding, which is deceptive. This is referred to as Mara. And Martin Edward, I know, quotes quite regularly, and really that wonderful point of the Buddha. Buddha says, I see you, Mara. And that can arise at any time in the life. So what does that mean that we are, so to speak, closer to? Firstly, just to make one thing very clear. Freedom of choice has nothing whatsoever to do with liberation or freedom in these teachings. Nothing to do with it in terms of the deep. And the reason and the confidence to say this is choice, whatever, requires causes and conditions. So I'm very kindly invited by George to come and speak with you this morning. And there's an invitation. I accepted the invitation. I have the privilege of communicating with you, and there are countless other causes and conditions. So the causes and conditions, past experiences, as a Dharma, servant of the Dharma, present experiences, time and place, opportunity, all the causes and conditions. So when we are speaking about freedom and liberation, it can't be dependent on causes and conditions, because if they change, one loses one's freedom. So freedom is not dependent on choices. I trust you get this rather important point. Let me have a sip of the water. Oh golly, the time is flying. So there will be, I can't imagine not, times when you have, shall we call it, the taste of freedom. What I mean by that, you're conscious, you're truly aware, and right in that moment or in that time or in that experience, whatever it might be, there is no problem, truly no problem. There is no suffering. Therefore, in that experience, there are no causes and conditions in that contributing to suffering. If this awareness has depth to it there, then in the depth of this, the being is not under the influence of the causes and conditions for suffering. Separated from what I crave, not getting what I want, being separated from who and what I love, being identified and caught up in the five compositions, aggregates of a human being. None of that is in play. And therefore, when there is nothing whatsoever problematic, it's a taste. It's a taste. The very taste of its nirvana. The meaning of nirvana is without fire, meaning there's nothing burning up inside. There's no pressure, no worry, no anxiety, no reactivity whatsoever in this period. Since that is the case, a comparative analogy, you have the taste of water, pure water, just a few drops. And those few drops, shall we say, turns into a lake of pure, clean water. You have the taste. So when you experience, and that could be right now in your listening, when you have a sense of depth, nothing problematic taking place, feeling expansive. You don't need to feel one with life and all of those distractions. You don't need to be in the here and now. You don't need the here and now for liberation. You just to feel a genuine expansion there. There's authentic peace in this. Please see and know and recognize this. Please see and know, recognize this. And the Buddha says that there is a seeing and a knowing. So often the words get translated as knowledge. The Buddha is not concerned with the knowledge, to a degree, but not primarily. He's concerned with the transformation of knowledge. For example, you may get some knowledge from this sharing with you right now. It's important, it's valuable, it can be a spark for reflection. But the Buddha shifts from knowledge to knowing. In this case, knowing about the taste of freedom. If there are still obstructions, if it feels like the taste of freedom, not dependent on past, present, or future, not dependent on choice, not dependent on this world, not dependent on thought arising. If there is this recognition, the seeing and the knowing, but it's just not deep, it fades rather quickly. The reason is why? What am I neglecting? And therefore, you then turn your attention to the path, and the Buddha has formulated, has constructed each links of the Eightfold Path. Please remember, it's eightfold. It's not onefold. Onefold, do not imagine for a moment that just by meditating, that means a onefold path, somehow you're going to know liberation. This is a hopeless viewpoint. They're very narrow, very boxed in, and not liberating. Every single link in the Eightfold Path, and weaving into that, includes relationships. When you look at the path, right attitude, right intention. Right means nourishing and fulfilling. There, if you explore every one, and that includes mindfulness, it includes samadhi, a depth of meditative concentration, but it includes the other 6 links as well. Please look at the Eightfold Path, because when you are developing that, you will find more points of discovery. And the final factor with it, one might ask, and it's a very valid question, what is the relationship between the path and the goal? Because if there is no relationship between the path and the goal, what is the point of the path? Because the goal is quite different from the path. If the path is the same as the goal, then what's the point of the goal? Because the path is the goal. So same or different is an unsatisfactory viewpoint. Please, I may have to meditate on this, be patient. However, what it means is that in the nourishment called the path, remember, it's fulfilling, those exploring them. It's knowing and understanding. It's seeing the benefit. And a human being who has realized liberation will know, in that liberation, authentic there, that an expression of it shows itself in a genuinely fulfilled way of life, absence of suffering, which the teachings offer, and they're called, for convenient language, the Eightfold Path. So the two are not the same, but they're not separate from each other. Final word there. One may think, my gosh, I've really got a lot of work to do. Maybe. However, some areas, Eightfold Path for the moment, you may feel, well, my livelihood, it's ethical, it's thoughtful, gives me an opportunity to care, to offer service, to be mindful and practice and so forth. Yeah. But sometimes I see my speech, there's reactivity, my communications and negativity, and that needs to be addressed. Sometimes I'm very unmindful, it makes a lot of problems for myself, and so forth. And that relationship means you look at those areas for whatever time is necessary to develop the receptivity, and then you will find if you're listening to a talk, if you are engaged in a book experience, reading a book mindfully and slowly and so forth, insights and understanding and seeing and knowing can emerge for you. And then therefore nirvana, which is the absence of problematic life, stands out for you. And to remember, not to forget this, the Buddha speaks first link of Eightfold Path, speaks of stream entry, English metaphor, turning a corner, a very major corner, and still allowing for problems to arise, issues that need to be resolved and attention to, so a person can know what liberation is, but still clouds, so to speak, go across the sun. And he says a feature of a human being who knows liberation, sees and knows it, not dependent on a specific experience, because it doesn't have a cause or condition, who sees and knows it, has an immediate response to unresolved problematic situations going on with himself, herself, other, there to resolve it. In other words, there is the freedom to have problematic mind states with the wise response that is required to work on that for however long is necessary. Whew. Squeezed it all in, not all, but 4 truths of life. May your explorations, may your meditations, reflection, may your reading, may your listening bear precious fruit, because out of liberation comes genuinely unstoppable love, empathy, compassion, and equanimity to stay with the facts of life in challenging circumstances there, being at home with oneself, at home with the nature, at home with life in a non-clinging way. The benefits are just immeasurable. Stay with the teachings, stay with the practices, explore the Dharma, and the awakening will be or already available for you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let's have a quiet minute or two and then the guided meditation. Right. Thank you. So, to sit, upright posture, comprehensive awareness, meaning well established presence. In this guided meditation, and reflection. The Buddha commented actually to his son, Rahula, who joined his father. His father became the Buddha, became a truly caring, responsible parent after his return from his search, and said to his son, all people, past, present, and future, so it's a confident statement, engaged in reflection to know and understand liberation. So this is a meditation with some reflection. So to ground ourselves quietly, allowing the whole being to settle. When our being settles down, the receptivity begins to emerge through the being. So, for reflections. 1. Where do you experience the most difficulty in your life? What shows the most reactivity? Habits, patterns, addiction, behavior. What's going on in the mind? What's going on in communication? What's going on in the impact of the old trauma, as an example, and its impact on the body? Where do you notice clinging, holding on to, triggering so much fear, blame, anger, stress, anxiety, all indications of the first truth of life? There is suffering. Secondly, what are the primary cause or causes, conditions for the arising of suffering? If you confine yourself to a view, oh, I make my own suffering, it's Mara, it's deceptive. Who in their right mind would make their own suffering? If you blame the other, she, he, other, really make me suffer, it's a contracted view. It can keep us in the suffering, such viewpoints. Therefore, the shift is away from self and other, or both, or neither. It's just life, it's circumstances, God is punishing me, etc. What are the causes and conditions? To see the causes and conditions. If you know and you see, it brings about a change, and the change reduces or stops the suffering. If it's not stopping the suffering, then you haven't seen clearly enough. It's just knowledge. Knowledge about the past, about the present, about the future. Knowing is changing. What are the causes and conditions contributing to this suffering? To see and know the causes and conditions with the intention to change reduces or ends the suffering. You may require the wise support of the Sangha. You may require the wise support of people who are dedicated and have much understanding, and they are the Sangha as well. In the secular world, in the religious world, in the spiritual world, in the Buddhist world, in the Sangha, and so forth. Do not imagine you can do all this by yourself. It's not in the teaching. We need each other. We give support to each other. Thirdly, reflect, remember any moments of a sense of joy, happiness, deep peace of mind, nothing problematic going on, nothing to complain about, nothing to hold on to. These are precious moments. Yes, they may have the support of meditation. Yes, they may have the support of receptivity with the listening. Yes, they may have support of being in the nature. Yes, they may have the support of sharing with the other. Yes, they may have the support of the arts. But the core of it, even if conversation stopped, the listening stopped, you went back indoors, whatever, the same sense can still be present, still be accessible, even when there's a recognition of the support. The taste of freedom not depending on the world around. This is the whisper of nirvana, the whisper of liberation. Liberation, the third truth, is the liberation from freedom of much of the burdens of the past impacting on the present. Freedom is to be receptive to what the present unfolds. Freedom, liberation, is the capacity to respond, to plan, to organize, to serve, to give, to act. So freedom from, freedom to be, freedom to act. This is liberation. finally, fourth, as one model of the way, Eightfold Path, to really look carefully and mindfully each at those 8 links. You might be engaged in very noble actions, service, the most noble action. You might have a really precious livelihood, but there can be a lot of suffering. Desire for success, trying to achieve, get things done, putting pressure on others, so on. What will change that? So a dedicated practitioner of the Dharma is deeply concerned with these 4 truths of life and sees as well all the benefit of all the other features of the teaching to contribute to waking us up to a liberated way of being. And recognizing that nirvana is not a thought away. And final word, as the teachings pointed out, the very much loved, much appreciated simile of the raft. In, metaphorically, going from one shore of suffering and problematic existence, to the other shore of liberation, a truly awakened life. The raft, the simile for the Dharma, is not worth holding on to. Nothing is worth holding on to. Since holding generates so much problems for human beings, holding on to. Liberation is a freedom from holding on to, so that there is an appropriate relationship, a non-holding relationship, and that includes the Dharma. All right, thank you. Time galloped, my goodness. All right, so I'm just going to go to the chat column here. I'm going to put on the specs. So if there are any questions or any responses in any way, please feel free to ask. Mm-hmm. Liberated and quiet Sangha. Cool. Can you share the 8 leaks? Certainly. So the first, remember the word right sometimes means right from wrong, meaning ethical and caring, a genuine supportive value. So the first is right view. So all being well, the sharing this morning is a view which is supportive and nourishing, but it also means an understanding. So sometimes in day-to-day life, something gets really clear to us. The problem of it fades away and an understanding comes in. So the problem, taking the English word for a moment, stands under us. We no longer feel weighed down. We might reflect on that. What contributed to that? What was the change that took place that I looked at something being very problematic, but now I'm looking at it and it's not a problem. This is right understanding and also right skillful view. Second is with regard to intention, a key psychological factor. Much of what goes on in the mind, one feature of this is intention. But sometimes we act, it contributes to suffering. It's not due to deliberate intention to cause suffering, but it's due to, back to the Buddha's language here, due to ignoring, ignorance, not knowing, not seeing what's going on, not recognizing the behavior that's generating suffering and problems for oneself or other or nature. Then comes speech, the whole world of communication, spoken and written. Following on, there is action. And the Buddha uses action and ethics in the same language. So, in other words, we check in with ourselves. Look very carefully. Are my actions today non-violent? Therefore, there's no support for war, none whatsoever in these teachings, nor in what the Buddha has said. There's not taking what hasn't been shared or not offered. There's care with sensuality, the use of pleasure, quite often forgotten, and that includes sexuality as well. Is it abusive, etc.? Fourth is speech, lies, distorted speech, hostile, backbiting, problematics in the communication. And fifth, the abuse of the use of intoxicants, alcohol, drugs, etc. All of that contributes to peace of mind. People who are respectful, their actions will reflect their ethics. Next is livelihood, but it also includes lifestyle. Following on from that is effort, not willpower so much, although occasionally, but more a creative, imaginative effort to help change things. Fourthly, next one is the mindfulness, the world around, body, feelings, and so forth, states of mind, Dharma as well. And finally, concentration power, meditation there. If we explore each one of those, which you can easily find online there, look at all the subtle details, you'll have a clear picture of the path, and that will contribute to a clear picture of your exploration and see what conversations can take place with others. All right. There's nice appreciations for the teachings, and person's having a mug of coffee to go with it. Sweet. Stepping in your clarity about choice and its dependency on causes and conditions which change, and a reminder to notice the taste of liberation when present. Yeah, yeah, nice. Dana day. Exactly. And as George mentioned earlier on, talk about right effort. Every effort is made to give support to the Sangha. One important expression of this is making the teachings available. And as you can imagine, you and I come on, we have it easy. We come on, we speak, we listen, and so forth, make our contribution. But in the background, the causes and conditions there is through the efforts of the team of Sangha Live and all the work, organizing, administration, website, and much, accounts and much, much more. They look up, pardon me, they look after all of that for us. They make it possible. We contribute, and very kindly they share the dana with us, and this keeps it going. And people who have no knowledge of these things often will ask, "Oh, how much is that costing?" No, we have a donation as the primary principle. People say, "Wow, that's unusual. That's interesting. That takes a lot of trust." Yeah, it does. And that makes people more curious because they like the value, the ethics of this. And some do payment by so payment for services. My thought, absolutely fine, but do look after those with low income. Nice words of appreciation. But the Buddha has spoken on appreciation very, very regularly. Lovely Pali word, mudita. And he speaks of it in pretty well one of the highest languages, Brahma, which means God. The Buddhists, bless them, they use the word divine because they tend to get irritated with the word God. But the word divine is another word in Pali. So they call it divine abiding. It doesn't mean it literally means abiding with God. Mudita, appreciative joy. In this case, happiness at what others offer, happiness of service, and many other areas. It's coming, dare I say, this coming out of God. It's something precious and deep, and appreciation is as important as love, which what metta means, including loving kindness, including friendship, as important as compassion, which is love to reduce suffering, and as important as equanimity, to be really steady in the face of whatever. So thank you for the appreciations. Beautiful. And Samar, these are responses this morning. If you need to go look after your kids or work or studies, enjoy. Right means nourishing and fulfilling. This is the word sam. Sam, literally like sam, for those you know, samkara means what comes together in an activity. Body, speech, and mind are samkaras. They come together as an activity. Everything is a samkara because it's changing. Samadhi, coming together and focusing on a particular. Sama, translated as right, means a coming together which is fulfilling. Yeah, the teachings themselves are just a masterpiece of wisdom. Awesome. All right. Let's have a quiet minute together just to finish. May all beings explore the four truths of those who live a noble life. May all beings come to immeasurable understandings with regard to these four truths in this field of existence. May all beings live an awakened life which contributes to the release of love and wisdom in this field of existence. Thank you very, very much for making the time there. Thank you to George and Sangha Live. Thank you for the support by your presence, donations, and so forth. And lots of love to each and every one of you. Bye for now.